never imagined I'd be thrust into the heart of a mystery so dark and twisted. It would haunt me forever. My name is Laura, a seasoned journalist, and this is my story. It all began on a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Chesterville, Pennsylvania. The town had always been quiet, almost sleepy, with its quaint old houses and tree-lined streets. But that peace was shattered when the bodies started turning up. The first was found by a jogger in the woods just outside town. Her name was Emily Porter, a high school student known for her academic excellence and cheerful disposition. She had been missing for 3 days. When they found her, her body was laid out in a grotesque display. Her hands clasped over her chest, eyes wide open, as if frozen in terror. The police report mentioned strange symbols carved into the tree near her body, but they dismissed it as the work of some disturbed individual. I arrived in Chesterville a week after Emily's body was found. The editor of the magazine I worked for had assigned me the story, hoping to capitalize on the growing media frenzy. I wasn't thrilled about covering another tragic death, but the eerie circumstances piqued my curiosity. I set up base at the only motel in town, a shabby little place run by an elderly couple who seemed too friendly for my liking. As I unpacked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this place was off. The air was thick with tension, as if the town itself was holding its breath. The next morning, I headed to the local police station to speak with Sheriff Tom Blake. He was a grizzled old man, the kind you'd expect to see in a Western movie. His eyes were tired, and his face was etched with lines that spoke of years of dealing with humanity's darker side. "Ms. Parker, I presume," he greeted me with a firm handshake. "I suppose you're here about the Porter case." He nodded. "Yes, Sheriff. I'd like to get a sense of what's going on here." He sighed and motioned for me to follow him into his office. The room was cluttered with papers and old case files, a stark contrast to the neatness I usually found in city precincts. "Look," he began, "we've had our share of troubles, but nothing like this. Emily's death. It's shaken everyone. We're a tight-knit community, and something like this cuts deep." I leaned forward, my notebook ready. "Can you tell me about the symbols found near her body? Any leads on what they mean?" Sheriff Blake shook his head. "We've consulted experts, but so far nothing concrete. Some say they're occult symbols. Others think they might be some kind of code. It's all speculation at this point." As he spoke, I couldn't help but notice a file on his desk labeled "Unsolved." Pointed to it. "May I?" He hesitated before nodding. "Go ahead." The file contained photographs of Emily's body, the symbols, and other bits of evidence. One photo caught my eye. A close-up of the symbols carved into the tree. They were intricate, almost ritualistic, and they sent a chill down my spine. "Do you think there's a connection to any past cases?" I asked, looking up at the sheriff. He paused, then said, "There was a similar case about 20 years ago. A girl named Sarah Whitman. Same age, same kind of symbols. We never solved it." I jotted down the name, feeling a sense of unease settle over me. 2 girls, 2 decades apart, both marked with these strange symbols. This was no coincidence. "Thank you, Sheriff. I'll need to follow up on this Sarah Whitman case," I said, rising to leave. "Be careful, Ms. Parker. Chesterville has its secrets, and some folks don't take kindly to outsiders poking around," he warned. As I stepped out of the station, the chilly autumn wind whipped through my hair, sending a shiver down my spine. I had a feeling this story was going to be more than just another assignment. Little did I know it would change everything. Back at the motel, I began digging into the old case of Sarah Whitman. The local library was my first stop. It was a quaint building, one of the oldest in town, with a kind of musty smell that clung to ancient tomes and forgotten corners. Mrs. Henderson, the librarian, was a kind woman in her 70s with a sharp memory and a penchant for gossip. "Sarah Whitman," she mused, adjusting her glasses. "I remember her. Such a tragedy. Her body was found in much the same way as Emily Porter's. Everyone was on edge for months. Do you have any records or news articles about her case?" "Yes." She nodded, leading me to a dusty archive room. Everything we have is in here. Feel free to take a look. I spent hours poring over old newspapers and police reports. The similarities between the two cases were striking. Both girls had been bright students, involved in their communities, and both had gone missing for 3 days before their bodies were found. The symbols were identical, too, though no one had been able to decipher their meaning back then either. One article mentioned a man named Richard Bowen, who had been the prime suspect in Sarah's case. He was a local eccentric, known for his obsession with the occult. The police had questioned him extensively, but there was never enough evidence to charge him. He had disappeared shortly after Sarah's death. I decided to track down anyone who might remember Bowen. My search led me to an old farmhouse on the outskirts of town. It was a dilapidated structure, with boarded-up windows and overgrown weeds, the kind of place that kids dared each other to visit at night. I knocked on the door, half expecting it to fall off its hinges. To my surprise, it creaked open, revealing an elderly man with wild white hair and piercing blue eyes. "What do you want?" he snapped, his voice gravelly. "Mr. Bowen?" "Yes. My name is Laura Parker. I'm a journalist investigating the deaths of Sarah Whitman and Emily Porter." His eyes narrowed. "I have nothing to say to you. Leave me alone." "Please, Mr. Bowen," I pleaded. "I just need a few minutes of your time. I believe you might have information that could help." He hesitated, then grudgingly stepped aside. "Fine. But make it quick." The inside of his house was as chaotic as his appearance. Books on the occult and paranormal were strewn everywhere, along with strange artifacts and old photographs. "Sarah Whitman," he muttered, settling into an ancient armchair. "I remember her well. The town never forgave me for what happened." "Did you kill her?" asked bluntly. He glared at me. "No. But I knew who did. Or rather, what did." His words sent a chill down my spine. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. "There's something dark in these woods, Miss Parker. An ancient entity, a malevolent spirit. It's been here for centuries, feeding on the fear and suffering of the innocent. The symbols. There its mark." I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. "Why didn't you tell the police?" He laughed bitterly. Who would believe a crazy old man ranting about spirits? They needed a scapegoat, and I was convenient. "Do you think it's still here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. His gaze bore into mine. "Oh, it's here. And it's not done yet." Thank you for watching this chilling mystery tale. Don't let those shadows haunt you tonight. Challenge your fears and find your courage in these yet-to-be unraveled mystery stories. Hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons now to join in on the thrilling adventure.